The US president's new global tariffs are now in effect at 10%. It's not the 15% Donald Trump had promised after the ruling late last week by the Supreme Court. The new duty is set to remain in place for 150 days unless Congress approves an extension. The Trump administration is applying the levy under Section 122 of the 1974 Trade Act. Donald Trump warns this tariff could increase to 15%, but has given no clear timeline for when that might happen. Certain goods still expected to remain exempt from these new duties. China urging the Trump administration to reassess its decision. The Commerce Ministry saying Beijing would determine at an appropriate time whether it wants to adjust its countermeasures. It's also signaled willingness to engage in another round of trade negotiations. American allies, meantime, are questioning whether existing trade agreements still stand. Tokyo says new tariffs could raise costs for Japanese exports as it seeks favorable terms under this new tariff regime. American and Japanese officials stressed in a call that both sides are still committed to implementation of last year's trade agreement. Taiwan also looking for similar reassurances. The island says it will work with the U.S. to ensure beneficial terms it has already negotiated do not change. Other trading partners also voicing concern, the European Union agreeing last year to lift tariffs on a range of American goods in exchange for a 15% U.S. duty. Now officials worry the new tariffs could be added on top of those existing measures. Britain has said it is not ruling out reciprocal action, but has also emphasized it wants to avoid escalation. From Jagruti Dave is covering the story for CNA Live from Washington, D.C. Jagruti, we're seeing that uncertainty, calibration from Washington's allies. What impact, looking beyond just these few days, would this new 10% tariff and potential 15% have on Washington's relationships?
I think confusion is the word of the day and likely the word of the next few months. Remember that companies were already uncertain about what the EPA tariffs, the previous tariffs, meant for them. And we saw actually this rush for companies to make purchases from abroad before those tariffs came in, seeing an increase in the US's trade deficit. So actions like that with companies bracing for what comes next, I think we're going to see more of this from companies trying to work out what actually is happening. Is this 10% tariff going to be raised to 15%? When is that going to happen? The Trump administration appears to be working on trying to make that happen. We don't know when. And companies are not clear on what they do next. And I think so are allies, as you described there. You know, Japan wants the terms of the existing trade deal to remain in place. The EU has postponed its vote on its trade deal with the United States as it works out what these new tariffs mean for them. So I think if we're looking at what this means for Americans and prices here, well, it's not clear whether it makes any difference with these new tariffs. We've got Goldman Sachs who are saying that actually, for now, high prices are here to stay. Many companies passed on the cost of their tariffs to consumers. And with that uncertainty still continuing, companies are unlikely to make any drastic changes or reduce their prices anytime soon until they try to work out what the lay of the land is.
The lay of the land would be U.S. trade policy. And this use of Section 122 under the Trade Act of 1974, it has not been used before. Trump team himself, his legal team, dismissing this statute as irrelevant just months ago. The use of it now, what would that mean for the future shape of U.S. trade policy?
Well, that is, again, up for debate. There are economists who are saying that these new tariffs could themselves be subject to being heard in front of the Supreme Court, just as his EPA tariffs did. What we know about the Section 122 tariffs is that they are in place for 150 days. They are temporary. They can only be extended by Congress, and they have limitations. Their scope is limited. So it refers to large and serious balance of payments deficits and fundamental international payments problems. Now, this is very different. This balance of payments deficits is very different to a trade deficit. This refers to the flows of financial revenues in and out of the country, essentially looking at potential imbalances between US investments abroad and foreign investments in the United States, cash flow problems, anything that's related to, say, the depreciation of the US dollar, for example. And this is something that is up for debate, whether actually it's not clear. It seems that initial analyses are looking and saying that actually there doesn't seem to be that sort of imbalance in payments that the US is facing right now. So this is something that is questionable as to whether this is the legality of this. The Trump administration could implement other tariffs, similar to looking at discriminatory trade practices, as the president, this is Section 301 that the president used against China, but that requires an investigation before those tariffs can be implemented. So again, lots of uncertainty as we look at how these tariffs unfold.
Thanks. Jagruti Dave reporting for CNA Live from Washington, D.C.